Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am honored to be here with you, very honored and grateful. I met Pastor Christie in my role organizing the chaplain program for the Maryland Senate. Your state senator invited her to come and offer the invocation. And about a week before she was to come, she started sending emails, what can I be praying for? What are they working on? What do they need? It was clear that she was taking seriously what she had been asked to do. I'm sure you guys know she's great, but I've really enjoyed getting to know her and being invited here. I cannot begin to tell you how honored I am to be here. So as we get started today, I want to ask you guys something. Does hearing the sound of these keys bring you any joy? Of course not, because you're not in prison. If you were in prison and you heard the guard walking down the hallway and the keys jingling on his belt, your heart would explode with hope that that big metal door was going to be opened and you were going to be freed. So being that it's Independence Day, I want to ask everybody here today, are you free? Truly free? What does it even mean to be free? Can I take a slight detour to tell you about how I got free? I was raised a Catholic, went to Sunday school, eventually sang in the church band and the choir, taught Sunday school. But in my adult life, when Jesus finally found me, I don't think I would have passed muster. I was sweating and nauseous. My eyes were watering and I was yawning. Dry heaving, insomnia. So when Jesus found me, I was in drug rehab for the third time. I never intended for this to happen to me. I just took some Percocet for a sprained ankle. By the end, I hadn't showered in a week. I was sleeping on a futon in the office of my bankrupt business when my wife kicked me out that Christmas. And here I still was injecting $400 to $1,000 a day of heroin into my veins with the express purpose of trying to kill myself because I just couldn't stop. One signature and I'm never going to see my kids again. And eventually the quantity I took just to appear normal was staggering. I begged God daily to just let me pass, and I'd wake up each day. I eventually reached the point that I couldn't eat, sleep, think, work without opiates in my system because they actually regulated the functions of my body. I had tried and tried and tried, and I wanted to be sober so badly. The people in Alcoholics Anonymous had put this crazy idea in my head that the only way I was going to get well was by praying to God and turning my life and will over to Him. Because there was no human remedy for alcoholism or addiction. That's a pretty bleak prognosis. It's like being in prison. At the same time, I had nothing to lose. What else was I going to do? I'm going to lie in this bed all night, if this rubber mat can be called a bed, in rehab number 3, tossing and turning and playing the tape over and again of all the people in my life that I've let down, whether I pray or not. But doubts flooded in, It's like people pray and still, good people pray and still get cancer and they lose children and tragic accidents happen. If I were God, I wouldn't answer prayer from a guy in my situation. But I did. And I went over to the corner of the room. And I remember it was really still and quiet. And right before the cynic in me gave up and I loosened the grip in my hands and I said, God, help me. I don't even know if you're really there, but please help me. And so the next morning I wake up and I walk down the hallway and I pass another patient and we exchange some little kind of fish story thing. And right away I stopped and caught myself and thought, you just lied to that guy. So I'm standing here feeling guilty as anything for something, I did every day, And the obsession and the sickness from the drugs vanished. I had been through withdrawal dozens of times. It does not just stop. What was going on? I was free. I don't know why I was free. I don't know what God wanted from me. But I was free. It didn't take long for the implications of this to sink in. Because first, it meant that God is real. Not maybe, like he's really real. Think of all the things that derail even the most devout Christians. Reconciling creation and the theory of evolution. What's going on with Islam? Is it really the same God? All these things. But it doesn't matter because God is real. Jesus Christ is who he says he is. The gravity of God's reality is pretty terrifying. Think about it. Adam and Eve hid naked because the pure holiness of God would have melted them like wax in their state of sin. We can't make ourselves right with God. We can't even approach him because he's so perfect and holy. God's justice alone compels all of creation to demand our surrender. I learned exactly what becoming aware of this felt like when being told in a 21st century medical facility that there is no cure for my condition, just divine intervention. Well, that sounds a lot like human sin, right? So there's this idea of freedom. How do we get free? How do we really get it? I think of the story of Zacchaeus in the Bible. Maybe there's a little more there than we've traditionally, read into it. We say, okay, there's Zacchaeus, and he climbs the tree because he's short, and Jesus sees him, and proud of his initiative, tells him to come down, and he spends the day with him. But I think there's more to it than that. If he was just short, if that was the issue, couldn't he have just walked around to the front of the crowd? Couldn't he have had some of his friends hoist him up on his or her shoulders? No. Jesus climbed the tree because he was absolutely desperate to see Jesus at any cost. He was awed by Jesus. A-W-E-D, awed. Aware. He was aware. He was aware of sin, the human condition, the curse, and he was aware that only Jesus Christ is going to save him. He was willing. He was willing to do whatever he needed to do. He was willing to follow Jesus even to the risk of his reputation, his job with the state collecting taxes, his wealth, which he gave away, doling out amends to everybody he had ever wronged. And he was desperate. He was desperate to see Jesus. We would do that today, but we'd do it at a Beyonce concert to see a real star. We wouldn't do that for Jesus. We wouldn't climb a tree and do all that. We have to be awed by him too. The New Testament is full of people that were desperate just to touch his clothes, or get a word, or a look. We have to be awed by him. So now here I am in a room of charitable, loving, kind Christians asking the question, did I miss something? Because I went to church before, but then this thing happened in the rehab center. I think what happened is that I had my religion already before even slipping into addiction. And in that rehab center, I got saved by Jesus Christ. So all the things before, like the works, things I would do, I did because it was part of my religion. I was told, you do these things. But now those works are just an outpouring of love and gratitude for being set free. If you don't believe that maybe there's more to this Christianity thing than what we've done our whole lives, I think of Christians today in Syria. And sometimes they're pulled out of their homes in the middle of the night in their night clothes at gunpoint and told, renounce Jesus Christ and live. And they say, I'm sorry. Take everything I have, please. But I will not renounce Jesus Christ. Oh my God, what faith. We don't do that. I mean, come on. Miss Eunice and Miss Sue Ann are in a church picnic war over casserole, and Frank is resentful at Eunice for buying cheap hot dogs. It's okay to laugh. We do that though, don't we? We get wrapped up in that kind of stuff. We forget that the American War for Independence was a proposition of life or death, and so is the Christian war for independence. In today's gospel reading, we saw a lot of men, and probably women too, that were free and in awe of Jesus. And you might immediately go, what do you mean? They weren't free. He told them, don't eat, don't take clothes, don't take shoes, don't do this, don't do that. But when they come back to Jesus, after walking hundreds of miles around these desert communities, and in the last verse they come back to him, They don't say one word about the sunburn they must have had. They don't say one word about the blisters that had to be on their skin or their raggedy clothes or how hungry they were. They said one thing to him, and they were in awe that the power of God was so present in everything that they had done. That's freedom, when you don't even care about the things being thrown at you because you're just in awe of Jesus and grateful, and it's just there. So there's a job to be done by us too, just like the 70 in this passage. Pastor Christie has sent us out into the community to invite people to come. Maybe the benchmark, instead of whether or not I invited them, should be whether or not they came. And I know you might get angry at me for saying that, but think of it like this. There are people out there dying. And you guys have the answers. You know that Jesus Christ is the cure. I mean, think about it this way. You have on good evidence today someone that stood in front of you and said, I had lost everything. My marriage was in ruin. I was in rehab for the 3rd time. I was completely broken. And Jesus Christ saved me. So Jesus Christ then is the answer. Like the 70 from today's reading, don't take a bag with you when you go out to invite people. Don't take extra shoes. Don't set the DVR to record Game of Thrones. Just go. Some of you, maybe even one of you, are going to connect with what I'm saying today. If you have Jesus Christ and you practice Christianity, good. But I get around to a lot of churches, and I see a lot of really good people, well-meaning people that practice their religion perfectly, but secretly long for Jesus Christ to save them. They want to be free and awed, aware, willing, emptied, desperate. Who but God could take a heroin addict and make it somebody's strongest asset, right? The happiest points in my life are when I have no choice but to tell people what He's done in my life, and that's how it should be. In closing, the wages of sin is death. It's a pretty bleak prognosis. But the gift of God is eternal life in Jesus Christ. We live in a country where we're constantly reminded that freedom is not free. Things are really not that great here right now. But we need to put our focus on the independence that matters, that's worth fighting for, that's worth dying for, this free gift of salvation. It doesn't cost anything. It's a freedom that is free. In the last verse of our passage from today, Jesus is basically telling us, don't be impressed by all the spiritual things you've gotten on this earth. Rejoice that your name's written in heaven.